Today we're going to be doing a portrait project inspired by an artist named Gustav Klimt. Gustav Klimt was an Art Nouveau style painter who was very famous for making portraits of people surrounded by beautiful, intricate, and fancy patterns. You can see that in his paintings he really liked to use the color gold and was really interested in using repeating shapes and lines within his artworks. So to start this project, we first have to decide how many people we're going to be having in this picture. So I'm going to do kind of a Mother's Day theme since Mother's Day is coming up, and I'm going to do a picture of me with my two kids snuggled up. So up at the top of the paper, I'm going to draw some ovals for the faces. So I think I'm going to put me in the middle. So this oval is a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to have my daughter right here. And then my son right here. And he's a baby, so I'm going to make his face a little smaller and a little rounder. So when you draw your portraits, it's really important to be thinking about what we can add to them to make them look like the real person. So you're going to be thinking about what kind of hair each person has, how old they are, how big they are compared to the others in the picture. Do they wear glasses? Do they have freckles? All those little details are going to really come in handy. Now, when we do a portrait, I like to usually make myself a little guideline. So right in the middle of our oval, I'm going to draw a light line for the eyes, okay? Make sure that this space at the top and this space at the bottom are about the same. Then I like to sort of draw another light guideline right down the middle vertically so that I can make sure that I have my face somewhat symmetrical. Okay, now I'm gonna start by adding the eyes. And I'm just gonna draw sort of some football shapes right on this eye guideline right here. And you can follow along with me or you can pause the video, whatever you choose. Okay. Now I'm going to kind of be looking down at my kiddos, so I'm going to put the eyes sort of facing that way. So I kind of scooch the circles, the irises of my eyes off to the right-hand side. Okay. And then I might add some eyebrows up above. And think about if your person has thick or thin eyebrows. I sort of have thicker eyebrows, so I'm going to add in some short little lines that look like hairs. I'm going to kind of put a lot of them. And now, right below the eyes, I'm going to divide this space in half one more time. That is where the nose goes. And to do a nose, you have to kind of decide what sort of nose you want to do. Sometimes I just do a simple nose by adding two tiny ovals for nostrils. And if you want to kind of add a little curved line at the edge of the nose, you can do that as well. And now I'm going to divide this bottom space in half one more time, and that's going to be where the mouth goes. So I'm going to give myself kind of a smiling mouth. There's my top lip. And then for the bottom lip, I'm just going to kind of add a little curved line. Like that. And if you want to, you can add some eyelashes. My eyelashes aren't super long, but I'll just add a few little ones there. Ears go right on the eye guideline. So right where this eye guideline is, I'm going to add just a little kind of half oval shape, because from this angle we won't see that much of the ears. And from there we can add some hair, and I think I like to wear my hair up a lot at home, so I'm going to put my hair in sort of a bun. It might be kind of a messy bun too if we're snuggled in bed, with kind of some pieces coming down. Yep, that looks kind of like me. And then after I do this, I can draw my other faces as well. have all of your portraits sketched out, the next thing we have to do is tuck all of our people in bed. So I like to do that by just drawing some wavy, kind of free-form lines. And I like to start right under the chin. That way it looks like we're kind of just tucked in bed right up to our chins. I can kind of move it down a little bit to go under my daughter's chin. And then I can kind of make another blanket going under this chin. Like our blankets are just kind of all tangled up kind of in a crazy. So any way that you draw these wavy lines is gonna look okay, because blankets can get a little crazy sometimes. And sometimes I like to add a little pillow behind us, or sort of like the blanket is snuggled around us. Just like that. So sort of just some wavy lines surrounding you, and some that are under your chin. That way we don't have to draw the rest of the body because it's all covered up. So I didn't even draw a neck or anything because those blankets come right up to the chins. Now, one thing you can do sometimes is on these blankets where they come up, sometimes I add some little ovals, 4 ovals to be exact, kind of hanging onto the blankets, and that looks like fingers, like there's fingers gripping the blanket. So I'll put some little ovals here for the baby. And there we go. Now it looks like they're kind of hanging on to those blankets. Now down here at the bottom space that we've saved is where we're going to make it look like a quilt. So once again, with these wavy lines, I'm just going to start dividing this space into smaller sections. And there's really no right or wrong way to do this. However, keep in mind that every section you make is going to have a different pattern. So I usually kind of divide mine up until I have maybe about, 10 different sections, maybe 15. That's usually about a good number of patterns to make. If I have one that seems too big, I can just divide it up. You just keep going with your wavy lines until you think that it looks right. After you have your quilt drawn, I always like to go back and outline it with a black pen. If you don't have a black pen, that's okay. You don't have to do that step. I also like to erase any of the leftover guidelines that I don't need anymore, or any of my little sketch lines that I didn't end up tracing. I want to get all of that extra stuff erased. Because guidelines are just used to help us get things in the right place when we're drawing. You don't need to have them be part of your final project. All right, now that all of our portraits are done, it's time for the really fun part, which is making patterns on our quilt. Now we know that Gustav Klimt was really famous for doing a lot of intricate patterns, so we really want to take some time to think about what we're doing for patterns as well. So for example, if I start here, maybe my first pattern, I'm going to do sort of like a floral flower type of repeating shape. So I'm just going to repeat the same design everywhere. Maybe this one is sort of going off the edge, so you only see part of it. And I would fill this whole space, but then I usually like to use more than one color on each of my patterns to really make them look interesting, just like you see in real fabrics, on your clothes or on quilts. They don't have just one color, they have a lot of interesting designs going on. Maybe I'll do some polka dots in the background here. And you can use markers for your patterns. You can use crayons if you don't have markers, colored pencils too. You could combine them all if you want to. That would look really awesome. I think that the more colorful you make your patterns and the more intricate, that means the more detailed, the better they look. So if I did flowers on one pattern, maybe on the next pattern I want to do something totally different. Like maybe this one is going to be like a plaid pattern. Stripes would be cool too. I'm going to start with stripes. And I'm kind of making my lines a little wavy to make it look like the blanket is kind of wrinkled up a little bit. So I didn't make my lines perfectly straight. And now plaid patterns, whenever you color them, they have like an alternating pattern. So I would go white, color, white, color, white, color. And then the row above it, you would do the opposite. So color this one, just like a checkerboard, leave that one white. So just take your time sort of having fun developing these patterns, and the more time you spend on it, the more beautiful your patterns are going to look. So here's an example of a finished project. I have all of my quilt spaces filled in with a different pattern, and I also used some paint and some marker to color in my portraits as well, because we don't want to leave those white, of course. So also on this one, I used watercolor paints to paint the backgrounds of my quilt sections first, and then when the paint dried, I added marker on top of it. So that's another way you could do your patterns if you want it to be a little more colorful and not have that white background. When you are done with your project, don't forget to upload it so that I can leave your comment.